I gave birth alone. No one was beside me. No hand to hold. No reassuring words, just me in a car, driving through contractions, whispering to my unborn daughter that everything would be okay. And where was my husband? With his sister. At least, that's what he said. With Aubrey. Can't talk right now, just text, was the message I got when I told him I was in labor. Not even a call, not even an ounce of urgency. In that moment, something cracked inside me, a silence so sharp, so clear, that it split through every excuse I had ever made for him. My name is Alina Parker, and this is the story of how I realized that love, real, devoted love, should never feel like you're competing with a lie. Because that's what it was. A lie so twisted, so calculated, it nearly broke me. Jason Mitchell was the man I married. Charming, attentive, wounded by tragedy, or so I believed. He told me his entire family had died in a car accident when he was in his 20s. And he leaned on that story often. It explained his closeness with Aubrey. It explained why he clung to her like she was all he had left. I wanted to believe him. I needed to believe him. Until the day I brought our daughter into the world alone and everything unraveled. This story isn't about revenge in the loud, dramatic way you might expect. It's about something quieter, more powerful. It's about truth. And what happens when you finally decide that the truth is enough? So, if you've ever been made to feel like your instincts were irrational, or that your kindness was weakness, listen closely. Because you're not alone. And neither was I, not really. When Jason first introduced me to Aubrey, he called her his sister, his only family left after the accident. She was beautiful, always perfectly dressed, and had a confidence that made every room turn toward her. At first I was relieved that he had someone who reminded him of love, of home. But as time passed, I started noticing things, strange things. Jason would cancel dinner plans with me just to spend time with Aubrey, and not casual hangouts. I mean full weekends away, spa trips, late-night movie marathons, even sleepovers. He would crash at her place and come back the next morning like it was no big deal. I remember one night they came home from dinner, laughing. Aubrey was wearing a necklace, my necklace, a diamond pendant Jason had gifted me for our anniversary. When I gently brought it up, she smiled and said, "Oh, I figured you wouldn't mind. It obviously looks better on me anyway." Jason said nothing. Another time, Aubrey accused me of flirting with some random guy at the grocery store. Jason was furious. But the flirting she mentioned? I had told a stranger his shoelaces were untied. That was it. The more time I spent around them, the more I felt like a third wheel. Aubrey would always sit between us. She'd speak for Jason, answer his phone, even order his food at restaurants. But I still convinced myself it was just their bond. I told myself family comes first. I wanted to be the supportive wife. I wanted to be someone who didn't cause drama. I even pictured our daughter growing up close to her aunt. I imagined holidays and birthdays filled with laughter, love, and family unity, whatever version of that we could still build. I ignored the pit in my stomach. I silenced the part of me that whispered, "This isn't normal." Because every time I tried to express concern, Jason had a way of making me feel ridiculous. Overreacting, jealous, controlling. And when I'd apologize for even asking, he'd wrap his arms around me and say, "You're the only one I'll ever love." I wanted to believe that, desperately. Because if I didn't then, I had to admit that the entire foundation of my marriage was built on a lie. So I buried my discomfort. I smiled through awkward dinners. I looked the other way when Aubrey walked into our bedroom without knocking. And I waited. I waited for the day he would choose me fully. The day his loyalty would shift from the past he clung to, toward the family we were building together. That day never came. Instead, it all came crashing down the moment my water broke. It was a Sunday morning when my water broke. I was alone in the house, folding baby blankets, thinking about how close we were to finally becoming a family. The pain came quickly, sharp, sudden. I dropped to my knees, breathing through the contractions, grabbing my phone with trembling hands. I called Jason. No answer. I called again, still nothing. Then a text popped up. With Aubrey. Can't talk RN, just text. I stared at the screen, stunned. My fingers shook as I typed, "I'm going into labor." No reply. I didn't have time to wait. The pain was getting worse, closer together. I tried calling an ambulance, but they put me on hold. I couldn't believe it, so I did the only thing I could. I drove myself to the hospital. Every bump in the road was agony. I kept one hand on the wheel, one over my belly, whispering to my baby, "Stay strong, we're almost there." I don't remember much about the check-in or the nurses or even the delivery itself. What I remember is the cold grip of fear, the loneliness, the aching knowledge that the man who was supposed to be by my side wasn't. Hell, Mom got there just in time to hold my hand as I pushed. She whispered prayers while I cried through the contractions. There were complications, but in the end, my daughter arrived, healthy, beautiful, perfect. Jason showed up the next morning. He walked into the hospital room with a coffee and a crooked smile. "Good morning, my love," he said. "I'm so sorry. I never saw your text." Then he walked over, picked up our baby, and twirled her gently in the air like he hadn't missed a thing. I was too weak to fight, too exhausted to scream. I just watched him numb. Over the next few days, he transformed into the husband I always hoped he would be. He brought me heating pads without asking. He stayed up at night to sing lullabies. He massaged my swollen feet. He was everything I needed him to be, and yet, all I could feel was emptiness. Because something had changed. A line had been crossed that couldn't be uncrossed. And deep down, I knew this version of him wouldn't last. I tried to hold on to the moment. I told myself maybe this was the beginning of something new. A rebirth, not just for our daughter, but for our marriage. But old habits die hard. Within a week, Jason was barely home again, off with Aubrey, making excuses. And this time, I didn't just feel hurt, I felt angry. Because now, I wasn't just a wife being neglected. I was a mother being lied to. And I was about to learn just how deep the lies went. I didn't plan to say anything that day. I just needed to get out of the house. Jason had disappeared again, claiming he had family things to handle. So I bundled up the baby and walked a few blocks over to visit Mrs. Whitaker, our elderly neighbor who had lived on that street for over 50 years. She greeted me with her usual warm smile and a cup of peppermint tea. We sat in her cozy kitchen while the baby slept in her car seat beside me, and eventually, I found myself rambling, tired, overwhelmed, and desperate to make sense of the mess I was living in. I told her about Jason, about how he spends so much time with his sister, how I'd hoped things would change after the baby came, but they hadn't, and how Aubrey always made me feel like an outsider in my own marriage. Mrs. Whitaker's expression shifted. Slowly, the color drained from her face. "Elena," she said cautiously, setting down her mug. "You said her name is Aubrey?" I nodded. "She's not his sister." My heart stopped. "I'm sorry?" "I know Aubrey. She's the daughter of Linda Hart, the woman who works at the town clerk's office. She doesn't have any siblings. Never has." It felt like the floor had vanished beneath me. I sat there in silence, my ears ringing. The sound of the tea kettle, the birds outside, the ticking of the wall clock, they all faded away. All I could hear was the echo of those words, "She's not his sister." Everything made sense in the worst way possible. The glances, the inside jokes, the way she wore my things, claimed his time, fought for his attention. Of course she wasn't his sister. She was his lover. The worst part? I had never truly questioned it, because I didn't want to be that wife, the jealous one, the insecure one, the one who didn't understand that family comes first. Turns out, I wasn't jealous. I was right. I called my mom from Mrs. Whitaker's house, crying so hard I couldn't speak. She didn't ask for details. She just said, "I'm on my way." Within hours, we had boxed up Jason's belongings, everything from his shoes to his cologne, all bagged and left by the door. That evening, when he walked in, his eyes fell on the bags. "What's this?" he asked, confused. "I know," I said. My voice didn't shake. My hands didn't tremble. I was done crying. He didn't deny it. He didn't even flinch. "Babe, she's just a friend," he said casually, like he'd been caught texting an old classmate. I slapped him. "You will never be allowed near me or our daughter Jengen. Get out!" A smirk tugged at his lips. "You say that like it's a bad thing." Behind me, my mom stepped forward, eyes blazing. "You heard her. Get out, now." He left. And for a moment, I felt strong, triumphant. But I had no idea how much darker things were about to get. After Jason left, I thought the worst was over. I was wrong. The lie about Aubrey was just the surface. Beneath it was an entire world Jason had invented carefully, deliberately, and I was about to uncover it piece by piece. It started when I looked at our wedding photos. In one picture, Jason was smiling beside two young men he had introduced to me as distant cousins from his mother's side. I never questioned it. Why would I? But now I couldn't stop looking at one of them, the one with the same dark eyes as Jason, the same crooked grin. On impulse, I searched for him online. It didn't take long to find him on Facebook. I sent a simple message. "Hi, I'm Elena. I was married to Jason Mitchell. I think we met at the wedding. Just wondering, how do you know him?" He responded an hour later. "That's my brother." His brother. Jason's brother. The same brother Jason said had died in the car crash with their parents. The crash that was supposedly the reason Jason had no family left, no siblings, no aunts, no cousins. It was all a lie. Jason had 5 siblings, all alive, all living within a few hours of us. I felt sick to my stomach. Why would someone make up something like that? I called my best friend, Reese, and told her everything. She came over with a bottle of wine and her laptop. "We're going full detective mode," she said. And we did. We found Jason's mother's Facebook profile in minutes. She posted often flowers in her garden, book club updates, family dinners. There were photos of her surrounded by grandchildren, daughters-in-law, birthday cakes, and holiday decorations. There was no sign of Jason. Not a single picture, not even a comment. "He's not in any of them," Reese whispered, scrolling. "It's like he erased himself from their lives. Or they erased him." I stared at the screen, numb. He told me they were dead. He said he had no one left. But the truth? He had plenty of people. He just didn't want me to know about them. Why? Was it shame? Was it control? Did he lie to get sympathy, or to isolate me? We kept digging and found his high school yearbook photos. There he was, years younger, same charm, same smile that had once pulled me in. And right there, in the cheer squad photo, Aubrey. They weren't just old friends. They had known each other since they were teenagers. Jason told me they met in college. Another lie. Reese turned to me, her face pale. "This guy created an entirely false identity just to be with you." I didn't know whether to cry or scream. So instead, I looked over at my daughter, sleeping soundly in her bassinet. And I made a silent promise: no one will ever lie to you the way your father lied to me. Not ever again. A few days after I had kicked Jason out, a bouquet of white lilies appeared on my doorstep. No knock, no message, just a card tucked between the petals. "I miss my girls. Let's talk." That was it. No apology, no explanation, no acknowledgement of the months' years of deception. Just let's talk, like we had some petty disagreement over dinner. I took a photo of the flowers in the trash and sent it to him with no caption. He called immediately. I didn't answer. Instead, I texted. "All communication goes through my lawyer from now on." Then I blocked his number. It should have ended there, but manipulation rarely dies quietly. That night, I got an email from him, subject line, "The truth." I hesitated. I didn't want to hear his voice in my head again, didn't want to feel that pull, the one that made me second-guess myself. But I opened it anyway. It was long, rambling, defensive. Jason admitted that he and Aubrey had dated in high school, then again briefly after college. He claimed his family had disowned him because of her. According to him, pretending she was his sister was easier than explaining the drama. "I never meant for it to go this far," he wrote. "I really do love you and our daughter. Please give me another chance." I didn't reply. I forwarded the email to Linda, my attorney. She called me the next morning. "This is actually useful," she said. "It's a written admission of his deception. And more importantly, it's proof he's still trying to contact you despite the restraining order." We documented everything. But that didn't stop the spiral. Because when someone builds their world on lies, they will fight to protect it even if it means destroying you. And Jason wasn't done. I expected things to fade out quietly after I blocked Jason. They didn't. A few nights later, there was a knock at my door. I looked through the peephole. It was Aubrey. She stood there in a beige coat, arms crossed, looking nervous, almost remorseful. I didn't open the door. "I know you're in there," she called out. "We need to talk about this. It's not what you think." I almost laughed. "Not what I think? After everything?" "Go away," I shouted through the door, "or I'm calling the police." "You're overreacting," she snapped, her voice turning sharp. "Jason and I, our history is complicated, but we're not together. We haven't been since he met you." I didn't respond. I just held up my phone and started recording. "The sister thing was just easier to explain," she continued, tone now condescending. "His family is messed up. They really did cut him off. The car crash thing was just, I don't know, a simplified version." Simplified version. That's what she called a fabricated death story. She finally gave up and left. I called my lawyer immediately. Linda advised me to file for a temporary restraining order. If they're willing to maintain a lie this elaborate, they're capable of a lot worse, she warned. The next morning, I woke up to find all 4 of my car's tires slashed. No note, no witnesses, just the cold, quiet message, "We're still here." The police shrugged. "Probably just random vandalism," the officer said. But I knew better. I installed security cameras that afternoon. 2 nights later, the cameras caught Jason trying to open the front door at 2 a.m. with his old key. The restraining order had just been approved. I called the police. He was arrested for violating it and spent the night in jail. That should have been the end. But it only escalated. I began receiving calls from unknown numbers, silent ones, just breathing, then a hang up. It happened over and over. I changed my number. Then the online harassment began. Fake accounts popped up with my name, spreading lies that I had cheated, that I was mentally unstable, that I was an unfit mother. They tagged my job, my friends, even my extended family. I reported them all, saved every screenshot. And while I documented everything, I was also trying to care for a newborn. I was exhausted, frightened, angry. But I wasn't broken. Not yet. After the rock came through my window, I knew I couldn't stay there anymore. I packed a small bag, grabbed the baby, and drove to a hotel. My mom followed me in her car and stayed the night. Neither of us slept much. The next morning, I called my boss and explained everything. I expected hesitation, maybe even judgment. Instead, she said, "Take whatever time you need. Work from wherever you feel safe." I found an Airbnb cottage in a quiet town an hour away. It wasn't fancy, but it felt peaceful, secluded, safe. We moved in that afternoon. It was there, sitting on the porch with my daughter asleep in my arms and my mother sipping coffee beside me, that I felt the first breeze of relief. Not victory, not closure, but space to breathe. I didn't need Jason's confession. I didn't need him to explain why he did it. There would never be a reason good enough. Some people lie not because they're broken, but because it gives them power. And the moment you stop needing their version of the truth is the moment you begin reclaiming your own. I wasn't a wife anymore. But I was still a mother. Still a daughter. Still a woman who had survived something dark and refused to stay in the shadows. And that was more than enough. So I let go, not for him, but for me. Because closure doesn't always come in a conversation. Sometimes it's simply in the silence that follows when you finally stop answering. If you've made it this far, thank you for listening, for sitting with me through this story, and maybe even for seeing parts of yourself in it. What happened to me wasn't just about betrayal. It was about control, about deception dressed up as devotion, about a love that asked me to doubt myself over and over again until I no longer recognized the woman in the mirror. But here's what I've learned. You don't need to stay in a relationship just because someone says they love you. Love without honesty is just manipulation with a prettier name. And trust. Once it's broken through years of lies and silence, it's okay to walk away. You're not cruel. You're not overreacting. You're healing. To anyone watching who's been gaslit, silenced, or told that your pain is too much, I hope you know this. You deserve peace. You deserve safety. You deserve the truth. And if you ever find yourself standing at a crossroads, torn between staying quiet or choosing yourself, choose yourself. Always. If this story spoke to you, please like, share, or comment below. You never know who might need to hear it. And until next time, take care of your heart. It's braver than you think.